Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. We've got a good crowd from all over the world, and we appreciate the fact that it's convenient for some and maybe not as convenient for others. So we appreciate everyone's cooperation with the time zone. If you haven't already, we're asking you to put your phone on mute to minimize any feedback that might be coming through the session here today. If anyone has any technical issues, please, you can add a concern to the chat. We are monitoring the chat very carefully, so we'll try to respond as quickly as we can. But we think we have everything up and running. So we're here just 2 weeks before the National Association of Convenience Stores holds their annual convention in Chicago, and convenience is the topic as we look at trends across retail today, not just within the convenience travel. We're seeing the move towards smaller trips, more frequent stop-up trips, and actually smaller total basket purchases is on the rise. So once the domain of C-stores, almost all retailers want to be relevant and appealing to the grab-and-go shopper. We're going to hear from two experts today. Britt Peterson at Cole & Weber United has been involved in deep dive research to understand the motivations and aspirations of the convenience store shopper. So their work has been primarily within that channel, and she'll speak to some broader convenience opportunities as well. And then Brian Gildenberg from Kantar Retail has been covering how most retailers in many different channels are trying to respond to this trend and attract the convenience trip. So with that, I'm going to pass this to Britt Peterson, who's going to look at this new C-store consumer.
Thanks, Gwen, for the introduction. As Gwen said, the convenience store space is a space we've been really interested in for a long time. A lot of our clients work in that space, whether it's beer companies or new packaged goods that are finding opportunity there, or even new services that really think convenience is a growing trend and one that they really want to take part in. So we saw that opportunity from our own experience with clients, but aside from that, we also know that this is just a channel that's booming right now. It's one that's expected to grow significantly by the end of 2013 and even more significantly beyond that. And it's really no surprise when you start to see the different kinds of stores that want to get into a convenience format. I think it's one of those things where you see big grocery chains that want to be more like convenience. Even though a convenience store used to be kind of frowned upon by a lot of brands, now you see Safeways wanting to get into smaller store formats and be able to really deliver upon this growing need and desire for convenience. At the same time, you see mass merchants like a Target and a Walmart starting to develop smaller store formats to capture that notion of convenience. Even Walgreens continues to be able to play in this channel in the convenience format from a drug perspective. You see them introducing things like drive-thrus and being able to really better deliver in that. And so as we look at the convenience store space, I think we really see convenience stores much more broadly than they may have been defined in the past as really the new format of the future. And I think Brian will touch on this a lot about how other retailers are starting to get into this convenience space. And so we really wanted to understand how people shop there. I think, for us, we set out to really look at answering some questions we felt weren't answered richly enough today. Typically, when we work with brands in this space, you hear the standard research answers of, yes, it's young men, it's 18 to 34, it's in and out, they just want convenience, not surprisingly. And we really wanted to dig underneath that. We wanted to understand who is really shopping this, not just from a demographic perspective, but from an attitudinal and psychographic perspective. But we also wanted to understand how can brands really connect with them in this format. I think convenience is one of those things that it tends to make you think people want to get in and get out really, really quickly. So how do you make that a streamlined process? And what we found out is for some people that's very true. But there's other need states that happen in this shopping process, and there's other opportunities to take traditional connection points like in-store point of sale or even packaging, and develop more rich connections with people as they shop in this format. We also really wanted to understand, how do they buy? I think it's one of those unique store formats where, yes, I typically go in for something, or I might have gone for gas in my car and I want to be able to pick up something else. How does that store process work? How does that shopping process work? Because it really is true that one extra item in a basket in a convenience store can mean, long-term sales increases for that store itself. And then we also just wanted to understand, what are other trends within the convenience store format that we can really leverage as marketers. So we set our methodology a little bit different. We really wanted to get inside and shop the store ourselves. So yes, we did ethnographic research, and we did a lot of videotaped mystery shopping in different stores. We also did a lot of interviews with people who had shopped in the store. We grabbed them afterwards and talked about the shopping experience, why they went into the store, what they got out of that shopping trip. But we also looked beyond consumers. We went to employees and managers of those stores to understand what they see in who shops those store formats. How are they designing for that? How are they trying to better meet the needs of their shoppers? And the last piece we added into that is stem from not wanting to take those words for granted. We actually got behind the counter and worked in several of these convenience stores. We wanted to experience firsthand what some of those employees see. We wanted to create a situation where we could have a different kind of dialogue with shoppers, less from a research perspective, and one to see, how do they really engage a clerk? What are the conversations they're having? And what can we understand from really being in deep in that environment? So yes, we cleaned the bathrooms with those employees. We stocked the shelves with those employees. We took breaks with those employees. And we really wanted to understand, what's it like inside that format as part of their staff. So it was a unique part of our methodology. We also wanted to really travel the country. We probably shopped in 300 to 400 different stores. So really understanding the difference between neighborhoods, different income levels, different ethnicities. And we went to 3 different core markets in the US. We went to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is a firm Midwestern town, has a strong Midwestern work ethic to it, Midwestern values. It's also, Iowa City is where the University of Iowa is, so we've got college town, and we were there right before they were going back to school. So we got to capture a lot of the momentum behind how kids, college students shop in convenience stores. What is that like? And really understanding that younger demographic as well. Cedar Rapids also was really hit by a flood, so you got distinct economic conditions that were driving things, and just changed the way people saw stores and revitalization even in those smaller communities. Then we went to Henderson, Nevada. If any of you have been to Las Vegas, this is a major suburb right outside of Las Vegas, probably 5 minutes outside of the Strip. Also is a town that has huge extremes when it comes to economy. You've got the ultra rich that live in Henderson, and you also have the uber poor. So we wanted to understand really, how do those different lifestyles play? What's the role of a convenience store for those different income levels? And do you see a change in how people shop those environments? The third city we went to was Seattle. Bigger urban market, which was important to add into the mix, but also one that is very active. It tends to be a healthier market. It's a green market. And we wanted to know if those nutrition cues or healthier lifestyle cues changed the way people shopped in convenience stores. I think what was interesting is we visited both independent stores as well as mass chains. So we got a good dynamic coming from both of those things. And quite surprisingly, we had a lot of hypotheses going into this too. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those hypotheses and where they were broken down along the way, because not all of them really proved out. So who is going into the store? Yes, we saw a lot of young people, 18 to 34. Yes, it's a place that college kids shop. Yes, it tends to be for convenience and for 1 or 2 items. But the surprising part was that isn't the extent of who goes into these stores. We saw equal amounts of shopping between men and women. We saw a lot of different age groups going in here. We'll talk about a couple of the need states, and you start to see them stretch from 15-year-olds to 70-year-olds. And you start to see a lot of the same behaviors come out. And we thought that was really interesting because there's a wider mix of people who really shop in this store that you can build connection with if you really look from need state versus demographic. So that's kind of high level what we saw in the store. I think the one unique insight we really saw about who's shopping this as well is it's a really social environment. Rarely did we find people come in and shop by themselves. Women might be with their kids and being able to run in and run out. Someone might be with a friend or a spouse or a significant other. But typically there were at least 2 people on the shopping trip. And in that, we saw it really become this social shopping destination. There was always a conversation being had and there were always people together. That was really interesting as we started to look at the different need states. But like I said, we really wanted to understand psychographically and attitudinally how do people shop in this format. So we broke it down into 4 need states. And these are really 4 key segments of shoppers that represented different shopping behavior we saw consistently across store format, across age group, across ethnicity. I'll show you a quick clip of the first need state we found.
Either Gatorades, All Sports, or Powerades. That's the reason well, for sure.
So that's Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones is essentially your brand loyalist. He is someone who goes into the convenience store because he wants his Slurpee of Diet Coke every morning. He wants his pack of cigarettes. He might want a Gatorade that he has each and every afternoon or a cup of coffee. This is certainly a man on a mission. They know what they want. They are loyal to that brand. It is just kind of the fix they need each and every day. And for this audience, what's really interesting is this is probably the most price sensitive audience that we found in all 4 of these need state groups. Because they want what they want. They know how much it should cost, and because they're looking for a particular brand and product, they are also looking for a good deal on that. They buy it each and every day. And so the more that they can get together or get it for less, that's a great thing for Mr. Jones. So he really looks for kind of where can I get multiple item promotions? Where can I find the lowest price? And from a marketing perspective, the biggest challenge is actually breaking through and penetrating that brand loyalty. But what we found was interesting is there's a lot of different connection points we can use to break through with Mr. Jones. For him, the in-store specials is a great way to leverage in-store POS. You think about things like pump signs at the gas pump, or some of those traditional in-store, POP displays. Mr. Jones uses those for price cues. It was really interesting in talking to some of the Mr. Joneses. They actually look at gas price outside a store and attribute that to whether or not that's a cheap store to find their product, even though it has nothing to do with one another. If store, on the left side of the street and store on the right side of the street both sell Gatorade, but one is selling gas for $3.29 and one is selling gas for $3.24, they will assume that the store that has gas for $3.24 also has their Gatorade for cheaper. And so they really use those cues, and it's a great way for marketers to zoom in on Mr. Jones and make those materials work harder. Know that specials work for them well. Find things that create urgency, multiple item promotions, great with Mr. Jones. The role of the clerk for them is really about having knowledge on price. Knowing when a special deal might be in effect. So knowing that next week we're going to offer 2 for 1 Gatorade, you'll get Mr. Jones back and he'll be ready to buy the 2. Supply for them is an interesting touch point. Typically, Mr. Jones wants to know he's never going to have to live without whatever it is he loves. So if he sees that something's almost gone, he's going to stock up on that automatically. There's a perception that convenience stores just don't have back rooms. and they want to be able to explore, and make sure that they get the product they want. And so if there are only 2 sodas left on the shelf and I need my Diet Coke for the next 2 days, I'm going to grab them both because it would be awful to live without it. And packaging for Mr. Jones is really just about familiarity. It was interesting to see how far brands could stretch. So people who really were Gatorade fanatics, next to a G2, you could have a conversation about, okay, well, G2 is the same as Gatorade, but different in this respect. And you even got some hesitancy around that. But because it was still visibly proven that it was Gatorade, they could go with that. Mr. Jones could go that far. But packaging for them is all about familiarity. They want the brand they want. So that's the first need state, kind of this man on a mission. I know what I love and I need it each and every day, Mr. Jones. So here's a look at the second need state we found.
Do you go to a particular store all the time? Is it like a local store?
Well, there's one on the way home from work, and sometimes I go visit my mom or something, and I just swing by and grab a little bite to eat or something on the way.
So this is the neighbor. The neighbor is probably one of the more interesting need states we found because I think in our heads they weren't a person that existed. Like we didn't think that this type of behavior happened in a convenience store. But for the neighbor, the convenience store is all about almost being a community center. It's somewhere they can go and hang out. It's somewhere they want to spend time. And if any of you watch Undercover Boss, there was actually a great segment on 7-Eleven that brought to life the neighbor. These were the people that went there every day for their coffee, but they also had a certain clerk they had a real personal relationship with. The neighbor really does think of this as a cornerstone of their community, of their neighborhood. They walk in, they know the clerk by name. It's, hi Joe, how are you? How are the kids? They know all about the clerk and they kind of go there just to unwind. They go there to hang out. And it's funny in the day and age of Starbucks or another coffee shop or places we might go to spend time, but this is where kids hang out after school. This is where adults go after work to just decompress for a minute or before work to grab that cup of coffee and start the day right. This definitely wasn't just a need state that was for old people who might have more time to spend there. We saw all age groups really use the store in this way. And for them, it really is all about routine. It's, I want to go and get whatever that is. I want to have a cold drink after work. And they are incredibly social. They want to make small talk with the clerk. They want to know about their family. And for them, they're not looking for a product. They want to feel important. They want to feel recognized. And so loyalty to a store is actually really, really important for the neighbor. And that's actually one of the best ways you can break through to this need state is to offer a loyalty component. Recognize the fact that they're there day in and day out, that this is a place they want to spend time. And you recognize that and they will come back for sure. They will recognize your brand in that experience as well. I think one of the biggest challenges with this group is actually just breaking their consideration set. It's not that they're opposed to trying new products, but they go to the convenience store because they've got their thing. They go there to get the newspaper and they sit there and read it. And so it's really just getting them to kind of look around and see something new. But there's also some really great tools in the store that marketers can use to break through this group. Namely, the clerk. The clerk is huge with the neighbor. The clerk helps deliver on that aspect of community. And also because they have this trusted relationship, they really value what the clerk has to say. They want to know about new products and specials, and the clerk can really open up their consideration set to try some of those things. I think for in-store communications with this need state in particular, it's all about the community aspect. It's really about leveraging those in-store displays to show how you're connecting back to their community, how they can connect back to their community. This group isn't as interested in price. They don't look at signage that way. They want to see, what's in this for kind of what's around me, and do you really know me as a person, and can I use that? And as far as kind of, surprise and price, I think price is something that, yes, they'll notice, but it's not a differentiator for them. It's not a reason to buy or try. It really is that community piece that pushes them over the end, or over the edge. I think we saw two great examples of this as we were out. Casey's is a convenience store chain predominantly in the Midwest, and they have a program where you can donate $1 to a particular community cause, and you get your name put up on the wall. That's what you can see kind of in the upper left. Neighbors love this program. They donate to it probably, almost every trip, maybe every other trip. It might be small amounts, but it makes them feel important. It makes them feel like they're giving back. Bud actually did a great job of this too. When we were in Cedar Rapids and Iowa City, like I said, it was very close to back to school season at the University of Iowa, and their school colors are black and gold. Well, Bud Light ran a promotion where they had yellow and black cans in a 12-pack, so Iowa colored cans, sitting right next to regular Bud Light. No difference in product, no difference in price. But 9 times out of 10, people went and picked up the yellow and black cans. And for the neighbors, that was really important because it was a badge for them. It was something to say, yes, I am an Iowa fan. These are my colors. So great examples of how to tap into that neighbor mindset in very, very different ways around the product. Here's a look at the third need state.
But I was really craving a hot dog and I didn't want to go to like the grocery store and buy one. So
this is the last minute shopper, and I'm sure for each of us, we've probably all been in this situation. This is the person that comes in and really wants to get in and come out. What's funny is a lot of people can fit into several of these need states, but this need state is all about someone asked me to go get something, or I forgot something and I need to get it quickly. And the need for quickness really overwhelms this need state. All of a sudden, it seems as though the convenience store is a foreign territory. I don't know where anything is. I want to get in and I want to get out. You almost see this nervous look come over these people's face as they enter of, okay, where am I going to find what it is I need and how am I going to do that? These are definitely people on a mission of a different kind. My husband called and said, we need milk, so I need to pick it up on the way home. I need oil for my car and I need to put it in quick. I'm late to a party and I forgot to bring anything to drink and I need to get it quickly. These are people who need to get in and get out as quickly as possible. They rarely speak when they enter the store. They kind of don't even want to make eye contact with you because they want to do this so quickly. And you see them searching throughout the store. They're searching for the product they need, and when they find it, they will grab that, and they will probably grab multiple because they don't want to do this again. It was really funny looking at people coming in for toilet paper or for milk and going, okay, I only need one, but really I'm going to grab 2 because I don't want to get stuck in this situation again, and they'll really stockpile on that. I think for this group, it's all about having stores that are well stocked. I don't want to have to go to a different store, so please have the thing I need. But the biggest marketing challenge with this group is encouraging them to explore. It's getting them to pick their head up and look around at what else might be there. So from a connections perspective inside the store, some of these tools work really differently for this audience. I think when it comes to in-store signage, it's allowing those things to really interrupt or remind them about certain things. So if I go in for the milk, maybe you should try and remind me, do I also need the toilet paper or something else that goes along with that? Because again, I'm in the mindset where I don't want to have to do this again. The clerk for them isn't as important for this group, except to help me find what it is I'm looking for. If they can be directive about go here, that's where it is, that's a very helpful thing for the last minute shopper. And really what they look for with supply, and frankly what will surprise them about shopping in this environment, is the availability of products. They kind of go in hoping that they're going to find what it is they're looking for. And they can be very surprised in a great way about what all a convenience store can offer, so that the next time they come in, they may be in a different need state, but they have a greater appreciation for all of the needs that a C-store format fills. So here's the last need state, and I will say one of my favorites, and really a ripe opportunity for a lot of candy chip manufacturers, soda companies to take advantage of, as well as just other brands who are looking to give people an experience.
Oh my God, all the time. That merchandising racket that they put near the front desk suckers me.
This is the Thrill Seeker. And the Thrill Seeker is fascinating to watch. First of all, this is a group that speaks in hyperbole. Oh my goodness. They love words like new flavors, flavor crystals, all those things that people really attach to new products that say, you know, oh my gosh, there's sprinkles in this, or look at the different color package this is in. Thrill seekers want an experience. That's what they're in search of. And so as they look at going into a convenience store, it's almost this indulgent treat for them. It's a place they can have fun. It's a place they can explore. It gives them permission to try something new, more so than a grocery store ever does. A convenience store gives them that opportunity to try and try new things. And this need state loves it. They are definitely that group that is into the novelty items. They'll look at candy a lot in the store because those tends to be brands that use words that they're looking for, the new, the different colors, new pieces to a product, whatever that might be, new ingredients. This audience really is just looking to be surprised. They want to have this over-the-top experience, and they really want to be able to take advantage of that. And they want those novelty, experiences that they can go share with other people. They love telling their friends about what they found in the store. But from a marketing perspective, one of the biggest challenges with this group is actually maintaining that thrill. So it's actually really easy to excite them and incite trial with them, but maintaining that thrill as you go can be somewhat challenging. For them, in-store signage is all about enticing. Draw me in, use those over-the-top words, create an experience out of the signage itself. And I'll show you an example of how we've actually done that with a client. The clerk can really turn them on to new products. This is a group that wants to experiment. And so the clerk can really encourage them to try that. They can talk about new products in the store. They can bring to light new opportunities. And word of mouth or other shoppers actually works really, really well with this audience. There was a group of them that we saw shopping in a store where you look and someone over in the next aisle might be talking about something new, and you'll watch this thrill seeker come around the corner to be able to see what it is they're looking at. They don't want to miss out on that. And so encouraging conversation in the store is a great opportunity for them. But any form of surprise, that fuels them. Added value promotions on a package, something new about a package I can take with me or share with other people. Thrill seekers just love that. And the most unique part with this audience is the role of supply for them. A thrill seeker looks at supply where if they are looking at two products and one is almost empty and there's another that has a fuller, more fully stocked shelf, they will automatically go to the one that's almost gone. Because for a thrill seeker, that means people like this. People have been buying this a lot, and I don't want to miss out on that experience. And so supply actually could work in a really interesting way with this need state, where if you almost keep the shelf less stocked, you'll probably get more purchase from a thrill seeker. And we thought that was a really interesting way to play with supply with this audience. So I mentioned we had tried a different type of in-store signage to better connect with this need state for one of our clients who happens to be Washington's Lottery. And for them, this is a great store format to sell tickets, but they typically are kind of hidden up front. You have to go ask for them. And we wanted to create in-store signage that actually captured the hearts and minds of thrill seekers. And so we created a program for their Lucky for Life ticket that pays money throughout the course of your lifetime if you're a winner. And these signs actually were motion activated, and they talk to you. And they started a conversation with people in the store about, what would you want to do? Let me grant your dream. What's the rest of your life look like with all this money? And why aren't you buying a ticket? And you saw thrill seekers just stop and play with these signs. And it really stopped them in their tracks. It gave them that experience they're searching for, that they wanted from a product. And interestingly, this has been the lottery's best-selling ticket they've ever had. And I think we learned a lot from being able to use signage, not just as signs that direct, but really experiences that engage. So those are the 4 need states. And I think there's clear opportunity with each of them if you really think about what need state makes sense for our brand. And we've gone and actually workshopped this a lot with clients about what need state fits with your brand, or where could you find incremental opportunity, whether it's feeding your loyalists with Mr. Jones, or providing a ritual or that community tie for the neighbor, being able to get the last minute shopper to add that extra item, or really giving thrill seekers those new products, those new experiences that they thrive upon. And so we've done a lot of work to figure out, how can we really hone in on one of these need states, and where can we find new opportunity? And how do we design our communications in store to better connect with each of these need states? But we also looked at how they shop. How does the purchase really happen? And I think one of the interesting things we found across all of these need states is when people purchased an item, there tended to be kind of 2 parts to the purchase. There was the thing I might have gone in for, and then the things that I surround it with. And that became more interesting as you looked at some of these products where I might not want you to know I came in for it. So I came in for beer, but I don't really want you to know I came in for beer. So I tend to buy snack foods to go along with that. Lottery tickets works the same way. I don't want you to maybe know I came in for a lottery ticket, and so I buy a fountain soda or I buy some candy, and then I ask for my lottery ticket. So there's interesting kind of shadow purchases there, but I think from a co-branded perspective, there's really great opportunity in here for brands that sell within this format to look to each other for ways to drive greater purchase. How can you think about those products I'm purchased with most often and create that offer, create that special that actually combines a candy bar with the soda, that combines a magazine with a bottled soda? Try to think about what other brands can we partner with to actually drive incremental purchase of both of our products in this format. Is a really interesting place for brands to play. We also looked at how that second purchase tends to happen. And what was interesting is it boiled down to really 3 questions. And if you got a yes, or if you could instigate a yes to any of those 3 questions, you could pretty much guarantee you'd get bought. And those 3 questions are really, stashed. So is there anything that's going to go well with what I have in my hand? Again, I went in for a bag of chips. I went in for a beverage of some kind. What goes well with this? Anything I see around me? And if you can get a yes to that, you usually get picked up. But the second question was flash. And that is, you notice this behavior of people. I pick up the product I want, and I quickly look around the store to see if there's anything else that catches my eye. That's where in-store signage and promotional things can really break through. You can really get a thrill seeker's attention. You might get a Mr. Jones attention based on a brand extension you have. But being able to capture someone's eye, if you get yes to that, typically it got bought. And the third question was really cash. And I think what was interesting is people who had $5 on them and went in and bought something for $2.50, they kind of recognized that, I don't really want the change. So is there anything else I can spend the money on? And this environment, more than any other, really gives people permission to do that. I'm going to spend the whole $5 instead of just spending the $2.50. And so if there's something that can kind of take up the rest of my money, that I'll go ahead and indulge in that. It kind of gives me permission to spend that additional disposable income. So stash, flash, and cash. Those are really 3 key questions, and I think they're great things to kind of use as cues for what you do with in-store communications or how you use other connection points in the store to drive that incremental purchase. So those are the need states. It's how people buy in the store. And then we just wanted to capture, what are other trends we see going on in these formats. And I think the clerk is a huge opportunity for marketers that sometimes goes under leveraged. If you think about the role of a bartender for alcohol brands on premise, the clerk plays that role off premise, and not just for alcohol. They play it for each and every brand that's sold in the convenience store. And, not only did we spend time as the clerk, but we spent a lot of time with them. We wanted to understand what really made them tick. And frankly, they're the single most important aspect of store marketing. They influence what people buy. They give recommendations. For a lot of people, they are that trusted friend that turns them on to new things. And they understand how people shop this store. I think there's this picture of Nick in here. And, Nick is an actual person we met in a Henderson, Nevada convenience store. And he's not what people think of as a typical convenience store employee. He's not a teenage kid who just has this as a second job. He actually moved here from India with his family. He has a PhD in history. He's extremely well educated and just was having a hard time finding a job. And this is where he's found the opportunity to make money for his family. And he really loves it. He is a fixture in the community. He goes to neighborhood parties. He knows kids' names. And he really understands how people shop in their store. There was another employee like this in one of the Iowa convenience stores we went to who noticed certain behaviors about how people shopped. We talked about packaging things together. Well, he knew people in his store tended to buy candy bars when they bought fountain sodas. And so he took it upon himself to move a candy bar display on top of the fountain soda machine. He actually increased sales by about 20% just with that simple move. But it's because they really do look at how people shop in the store and they take pride in their job. So huge opportunity to really tie in with this clerk, create programs and training programs about how to involve them in your brand and how to make them ambassadors of your brand in the store. We also really know that in this format, frequency rules. It's not huge basket purchases, but that constant purchase is what's important. And so fun plays a huge role in that. Doritos has done a great job of using their package as a way to drive frequency and drive fun. They created an augmented reality program where you can click the QR code on the back of the package. It takes you to added value, unique content that changes every week. So you kind of want to keep going back and buying more product. But again, this is one of those things that's sitting right next to a plain bag of Doritos for actually a higher price. This bag was grabbed 9 times out of 10 because it offered me something fun. It offered me that experience. I think what you see brands doing with Foursquare and the convenience store channel, again, driving frequency, giving me something for checking in a lot around a brand or around a store. You're starting to see how fun and frequency are really tying together. Do-it-yourself is another trend we saw. It started, I think, with the 7-Eleven Slurpee machines, but we've seen this do-it-yourself trend really drive forward. The launch of Coke's Freestyle machine and being able to mix and match soda, or in a lot of stores we found was do-it-yourself ice cream machines. And this is not just for the young. I will say it's for the young at heart. We saw equal numbers of adults wanting to play with these machines and create something that I can call my own, and again, give me that experience in the store. We also saw the opportunity to really inspire fun through incremental purchase. We thought about things like as Redbox has become more popular here and being able to tie into movie nights and take those to end cap displays where you can actually help my quest for convenience and fun all in one foul swoop. So imagine an end cap display that has my Redbox piece and the popcorn I want to eat and the soda I want and the candy, and allows me to grab for all of those things all at one moment. Really looking for opportunities to inspire fun through the products that you sell in store is a huge opportunity for both brands in the store as well as stores themselves to really drive much more of that experience. I think it's one thing that we actually see happening in European stores. where you see end cap displays around football, and being able to take everything you need around a football game and create an experience around that all through one small store format. So a great opportunity for brands to think about, what else do I go with? What other types of events can I surround my brand with? And how do I bring those brands together to actually make that a more engaging shopping trip for a certain need state? So those are some of the trends we saw while we were out there too. And I think more than anything, this is a real opportunity for brands and for marketers. And being able to create convenience store programs and shopping programs around each of these need states starts to serve up more interesting and unique opportunities about how you leverage some old and maybe staid contact points like in-store POS, like packaging. It makes you think about, how can I really engage the thrill seeker before they even go into the store? How does this new product actually drive Mr. Jones to purchase more of the brand he loves? So there's really unique and interesting opportunities through here. We've found great new opportunities with a lot of brands we've worked with, and think it starts to help us all shift our thinking about not just looking at a demographic and how they buy that product, but how do you play to a unique shopping state of mind and a more interesting attitudinal need state that can capture more sales. So I think Brian's going to kind of elaborate on that from a retailer perspective and be able to talk a little bit more about how retailers are developing in this space.
So what we're going to do is take a look at this whole idea around defining what we call the new convenience. And I'm going to try to do this probably more broadly perhaps than just sort of looking at C-stores per se, and to look at some of the key trends that we see around convenience retail in general. Because I think that one of the things that you are going to see a lot of over the next few years are a variety of retailers trying to find ways into the convenience shopping trips to try to capture some of the some of the four need states, if you will, that were highlighted in the previous presentation. Because as you look at what's happening in the brick and mortar world, I think there's some very interesting questions about going forward if you're trying to plan out. And remember, for a retailer, what they're generally trying to do is they're trying to plan out a store in terms of its return on investment for a 10 to 15 year time frame. So if you're a retailer today and you're building a store, you're trying to kind of take a crystal ball and look at the world about 10 years out and try to figure out, what job is that store going to have 10 years from now with shoppers? And that one of the really interesting trends that we continue to see, and I think you'll see exacerbated significantly over the next few years, are that increasingly a number of shoppers, particularly younger shoppers, are going to start to do more and more of their planned large-scale shopping trips in some other way other than going into a retail store. Whether that's ordering online and having it delivered, ordering online and picking it up, or whatever other ways the world comes up with to handle that type of shopping. It is safe to assume that the physical store is going to have to rely a lot more on more convenience-oriented trips in order for it to sort of drive sales, and in the end, in order for it to sort of make money. So as we look at this, we kind of started as we sort of try to unpack this idea of the new convenience with just sort of starting with the traditional definition of convenience. Anything that saves or simplifies work or adds to one's ease or comfort. And I think that at its core, it's interesting when you think about convenience retail per se, there's some interesting pieces in here that, especially when you dovetail them with Britt's presentation earlier, that become very interesting. Because I think, first of all, obviously there was a lot of convenience retail that in the end wasn't really about this at all. It was about fun, it was about excitement, it was about community, and there were a lot of the key attributes of that. And I think that convenience stores are going to need to continue to find ways to leverage that as other retailers begin to sort of what I'd call more mechanically or tactically attack what are sort of more the traditional definitions of convenience, which are about simplifies work or adding or one's ease or comfort. I do think, though, that as you're looking at where convenience retail is going to end up evolving to, that you've got an interesting dichotomy between these two things, because that dictionary.com definition, and perhaps if I used a better dictionary, I would have gotten a better definition. But this definition, at its core, particularly from a shopping perspective, isn't logically consistent. Because saving or simplifying work and adding to one's ease or comfort, actually from a shopping perspective, probably aren't precisely the same thing. So that as we map this out now, and you sort of think a little bit more broadly, what's driving driving a lot of the energy and driving a lot of the initiative behind convenience at retail? Look, obviously there's a real movement to this, particularly when you look at where, say, the future of supermarket design is going. You've got a number of retailers, H-E-B and Kroger notably amongst them, that are expanding the size of their supermarkets and making them bigger. You've got a number of retailers today, not just Walmart, although they get a lot of attention for this with their Walmart Express format, but there's a number of other non-convenience retailers that have aggressively been pursuing a more convenience-oriented retail space. Giant Eagle in Pennsylvania is probably the best example of that, and you can see some photos of some of their formats here. I think at the same time, you've got a number of retailers that are beginning to look at other small box retailers that aren't convenience stores that are becoming competitors and saying, you know what, I need to have a value proposition that makes sense. So if you're Safeway in California, or Safeway in California or Arizona, Circle K is a competitor, but you understand them. You've competed with them for years. But your small box competition from a point of view is going to be something that may perhaps be something more different than that, like a Trader Joe's perhaps. Not a conventional convenience store in any way, but a convenience retail outlet that can, or an outlet that can serve a convenience purpose, but also do a variety of other things. So you've got a lot of stores with limited assortments, a lot of stores with smaller spaces that are beginning to sort of bleed into what would be conventional convenience store trips. So, and the core concept here that I think if you're looking at it, if we were trying to drive back to the overall sort of consumer insight behind this, or the shopper insight as we would think of it, is around fragmentation. And I think when you look at the U.S. today, what you're looking at is an increasingly fragmented landscape. So fragmentation in terms of income in the marketplaces. The U.S. today remains one of the most stubbornly unequal developed economies in the world in terms of income distribution. So I'm going to have small box stores or convenience stores that are aimed at very high income shoppers. I'm going to have small box stores or high income stores that are aimed at very low income ones. That may not always be the cut, or the because obviously some of the shopping modes that we've talked about can operate across a variety of demographics, but at the same time, if I'm deciding what type of products I'm going to sell, I've got to try to understand what some of the income levels are that I'm trying to sell into. And I think this is going to be an interesting dilemma for some of the classic C-store brands, if you will, that kind of need to think about how they're going to reposition themselves to capture an audience that may want a more convenient shopping experience, but where they may not have the brand equity to play in that area today. You've got income, you've got demographics, but I think the interesting thing here is when you start to get to things like fragmentation of families and fragmentation of time. Now, I'm not the first analyst or the last that's going to tell you that you've got more and more non-traditional families in the U.S. and everything that means. But I also think when you're looking at shoppers, particularly in the Gen Y age bracket, you're also looking at shoppers that are forming sort of non-traditional household formations, non-traditional, sort of adopted families, the friends type family, if you will. And that type of household is going to need a very different thing from a store. And I think at its core that what you see retailers trying to figure out is, if I'm going to provide a solution for somebody, my challenge is today that a lot of the solutions that I've designed were really designed around mom, and mom having discrete amounts of time to shop. So those discrete amounts of time may have gone down a little bit, or she may be trying to maximize her time. So I've tried to figure out a way to sort of optimize those discrete buckets of time. And what that gets you to is, sort of a look at, if you sort of look around the world as well, when you look at some of the international examples of convenience stores, there are some really interesting things going on in the convenience channel in Europe, but there are also some really interesting things going on as the large-scale food players try to figure out how to tackle convenience retail in a more interesting way. And for those of you that are in Europe, you know this. For those of you looking to justify a trip to Europe, consider this slide a license to boondoggle, as there are a number of tremendous outlets. Auchan's, Et Tu Pas, which is not two steps, the Carrefour City Cafe, probably one of the best conventional food retailers in the world at running small stores, is actually a retailer that operates in the U.S. They just don't do it here, which is Ahold. And their Albert Heijn format in the Netherlands and their ICA format in Sweden have both done a tremendous job of understanding this. And obviously, I think a market a number of people are familiar with is the UK, with the high street stores that have done a marvelous job of delivering high-quality food in a very interesting environment. And so as you look at what's happening to convenience retail, there are a number of trends within the U.S. and a number of forces operating outside the U.S. that would suggest that if you're a conventional convenience store operator, you're in for a much more intense, challenging, and different competitive environment than you've faced in the past. And that gets us to sort of this idea that we've looked at when we tried to understand what we see in terms of what convenience is. Because if you talk to 7-Eleven, they'll tell you that they run, convenience stores. If you talk to Walgreens, they'll tell you they run convenience stores. But at the same time, if you talk to a Walmart, Walmart talks a lot about the convenience of its format. Now, those of you that shop at Walmart are going, that's probably different than a 7-Eleven, and that parking lot is, 16 acres long. The store's 200,000 square feet, and the checkout lines are, longer than my graduation degree line was. And I guess that's where we started to unpack that first definition, because it kind of contained elements of both of what are traditionally the two benefits that are most associated with convenience, which are speed and ease. Now, speed and ease can be the same thing, but they don't have to be. And I guess that, as we look at convenience retail, is part of how we're trying to think through what if retailers are trying to deliver convenience, what that's going to look like. And as you look at this is kind of what we call our new convenient model. And on the left-hand side, you can see some of the traditional things around speed-based convenience. On the right-hand side are some things around ease-based convenience based on sort of 4 fundamental criteria. And I'll explore each of these in a touch more detail following in. But first, it's all about to the store. Is the physical store itself convenient or not? And if you think about the need states, the Mr. Jones need state, the need state around, needing specific items. If that store is not easy to get to, it's going to lose in the end to another outlet that has that key item that's got easier access for the shopper. Now, at the same time, ease-based convenience can also be it's a shopping destination. And the whole argument for shopping malls over the years was that I can put a store here, you're already here anyway, I can add that in and build that. The second one is once you're in the store. And is it a quick in and out, or is it something where I can do a one-stop shop? And I think and I think you've got a third variable on this one, which is that whole notion of I may only need a couple of items, but I'm going to use the store as a social center, as we talked about with the neighbor, the neighbor segment that we touched on in the last presentation. But at its core, as a retailer, I'm trying to figure out whether I want somebody to get in and out of here quickly or whether I'm trying to meet all their needs. Impulse versus stock up at the shelf. So am I trying to get somebody to buy, sort of a multitude of things, or am I really trying to get them, am I trying to get them to buy the thing that they came here for, or am I trying to get them to buy something new? And I guess on the usage side, in the end, you've got this whole notion of immediate consumption, Mr. Jones, I need it now, or am I looking at something where the consumption is going to be more planned over time? I guess here's the trick with this. All 4 of these are going to be present in most retail formats most of the time. I think when you're looking at brick and mortar retail, not just convenience retail, but all brick and mortar retail, I think all brick and mortar retailers are going to need to make a choice about this over the next couple of years, which is what parts of my store am I going to dedicate to speed-based convenience? What parts of my store am I going to dedicate to ease-based convenience? And if I'm not doing either of these, am I in this sort of no man's land, or as to quote Al Gore, am I in the inconvenient truth section of this, where global warming is eventually going to kill all my polar bears? So on the to the store side, you get one sort of quick snapshot here. I know where my store is. And for all of the energy that the C-store business puts into this, there's really no retailer in America that's done a better job of understanding truly convenient real estate for the shopping trip that it's trying to sell to than Walgreens. Walgreens' entire business model is predicated on running stores off the easiest access land it can find and driving shopping trips in on a regular basis. So if I were a C-store operator, of all the retailers in the world that were trying to gear up an offer that looked more like mine, if Walgreens started to do that, that would worry me. And if you look at what Walgreens has been doing over the last couple of years, reintroducing beverage alcohol into a number of its stores, really trying to sharpen up its food offer, really trying to simplify the store to allow quicker navigation. Walgreens today is going to be a formidable competitor to anybody trying to stake a claim in the convenience retail section. Now, for ease-based convenience, I think there's sort of two fundamental questions. And on the speed-based side, that gets you to one really simple question, which honestly the C-store industry has grappled with forever, which is, what's the economic model of the store required to justify the prices of this piece of land? And one of the core elements that I think we're going to be looking at a lot over the next couple of years from the retail perspective is, how much of a convenience premium can you continue to charge in a world where, generally speaking, product is more widely available? And for certain items, you're always going to be charged a convenience premium. If it's 3:30 in the morning and I'm doing a drive from Boston to New York because I'm trying to get down to New York for a 6 a.m. trip, he can charge me $24 for a cup of coffee. I don't care. I'm going to pay that. But at the same time, the convenience premium that convenience store chains can consistently generate over everyday pricing, that's clearly been compressed over the last few years, and we expect that'll continue to be compressed. When we think about ease-based convenience, I think this is an area, and I think if you look at all of these ease-based ideas, the traditional shopping destination, the one-stop shop, the planned shopping trip, all of this ease-based convenience, to be honest, its biggest competition in the next 4 or 5 years might be online retail, not brick and mortar. What about what I'm trying to do in this type of format can't be replicated online, and am I still in the right neighborhoods? And I think the core trend that you're going to see from a number of retailers is that a number of them are going to try to offer a portfolio of formats that are all engineered at capturing their shopper in the variety of shopping modes that they bring to the table. The in and out on the speed versus ease is a pretty straightforward one. You get your quick in and out, your 7-Eleven that's right off the highway versus a one-stop shop, which is more like a Walmart supercenter. Traditional convenience really focuses time benefit on the length of the trip, and again, apart from that using the store as a social need state, almost all of the other trips to a convenience store to some degree involve this kind of speed. Just how do I get the shopper in and out of here as quickly as they need to? And then obviously on the other side of this is that whole notion of the one-stop shop. And as we talked about before, that one-stop shop today appears to be significantly threatened by the fragmentation of family time. Think about it today. A number of you have families with kids. And if you think about the discrete blocks of free time you have available, those discrete blocks are infinitely smaller than they used to be, primarily because your weekends are dedicated to being a car service for children. And if you think about single parents who are grappling with trying to, make time ends meet, their blocks of free time are smaller. And I think that's one of the real challenges today when you look at Walmart and their ability to try to recover, is that they're terribly positioned to try to capture a shopper whose time has fundamentally fragmented. So the core trend here, I think shoppers are probably less willing to trade at the extremes and certainly less willing to pay overall a premium for for convenience. When you talk about the third type of convenience at the shelf, which is assortment convenience, you can kind of look at this in terms of trying to figure out what my in-stocks need to look like and what my shelving conditions need to look like if I'm trying to generate more of a stock-up purchase versus an impulse purchase. I think we saw some good examples in the last presentation of the ability to use visual merchandising in this type of environment to generate and create impulse purchase. The photo I've got here is just one of my favorites, which obviously isn't in a convenience store because it's huge, but it's a Norse soup display in the Philippines, and visually creative. It's just that's a cup of soup. Mission accomplished there in terms of being able to perhaps get shoppers that weren't thinking about that visually engaged in the mission. And that as you look at the sort of notion of sort of the impulse trip versus the stock up trip, I think on the C-store side, this is going to really start to kick in when you start to think about how do I get the shoppers that are here to buy one thing to buy two. Because that, when you get right down to it, the average market basket out of a convenience store is so small that if I can just get that shopper to buy one more thing, I fundamentally change the economics of what I'm trying to do. And that, I think that C-stores are going to be very, very interesting merchandising forums for just about anything manufacturers are going to do from an impulse perspective. A side note that probably deserves its own presentation, but the whole notion of impulse shopping, when you really break it down, is arguably one of the most poorly defined important concepts in the world. Categories, there are so many different categories that are described as impulse categories from a shopping perspective that, other things being equal, have almost nothing in common. Carbonated soft drinks, particularly single serve, obviously for immediate consumption, it's an impulse. Batteries are an impulse category because they're not often on a shopping list. Toothbrushes are an impulse category because I need to be reminded to buy a new one. Magazines are an impulse category because when I see it, there's a whole host of things that probably we need to start to understand shopper behavior around unplanned purchase far better. And for brick and mortar retailers, this is going to be critical. And I think for the C-stores, they've got a great opportunity here, particularly with the fun seekers and the neighbors, to really start to think about how I use my environment to generate that one more item purchase. And you think about consumption, what we call consumption convenience, and just trying to understand, am I trying to get something, am I trying to give somebody something that's immediate, or am I trying to be the simplest way they can meet their planned purchase needs? And just trying to think about where that sits today. And the convenience stores for years have done a terrific job of driving immediate consumption in a variety of categories. And I also see, and there's I think you'll continue to see a trend in the convenience store industry to try to get better, in particular at quick meal solutions, particularly meals that can be eaten in the car. There's that I think quasi-anecdotal but based in fact statistic around how 1 in 5 Americans regularly eats a meal a day in their car, and really trying to find ways to meet that need. There are a number of retailers in the U.S. that have done a marvelous job of that, and C-store chains in particular. A couple of the East Coast ones, particularly Sheetz and Wawa, I think are very clearly best-in-class examples of retailers that have been able to take a food program as a convenience store and become known primarily for the quality, not just the ease of their food program. So when you sort of think about the implications of this, you've got more frequent trips are going to put a lot of pressure on variety. And I think this is one of the really interesting implications for manufacturers here. As stores get smaller and as shopping needs within stores get more distinctive, I think you're going to see a very interesting dynamic around the need to think about what ideal assortments are going to look like in small formats. How do I bring the category to life with a lot less space? And really trying to understand what the role is of variety in certain categories, but where I don't have the room for variety, how I nail the category precisely. So as you start to really think about this, end caps are going to be designed to really try to lead shoppers through the store. And smaller stores, that display should really be the primary sales location. And and I think there's some good thinking that's been done in a number of places around how to really drive the C-store trip off display. And the last piece here, that shopper trips are going to make smaller sizes and packs more attractive impulse buys for these shoppers on a mission, particularly in a tough economic environment. If I can give somebody a treat for a very low price point, I've got a chance of doing something pretty interesting. So I think to wrap up, suppliers today, I think, face a very fragmented retail landscape. So if you're a major branded supplier today, and you're looking for growth, I think this is a lot of reason why the C-store industry is starting to get an enormous amount of attention. Other things being equal, it's a fairly profitable class of trade for the average branded manufacturer. You know, the price points are reasonably high. There's not an enormous amount of discounting or price activity. And in today's environment, a place where if I can expand profitable sales, that's a big thing. So I think convenience stores are going to get a lot more attention from branded suppliers. And it's going to get a lot more attention from retailers for all the reasons we talked about as they seek to build stores that are going to really start to drive to get after what we consider to be, you know, the significant fragmentation of the landscape. And merchandising, understanding shopper expectations and need states, and really being able to understand what the right price point is for the convenience created. All of these are going to be key questions for the C-store industry. So with that, I will wrap it up and take any questions that anybody may have. Thanks for your time.
We're looking at the log right now to see if anyone has any questions. So we'll wait a few minutes. Thanks, Roger. I got some good feedback. Have you done any quantifying sizing of the need states? This is from Karen Kraft at Hormel Foods. So
this is Britt. No, we haven't done any quantitative sizing. It's actually something we're looking at doing. What's difficult about that is that I think any one of us could be in any one of those need states during different shopping trips. So we're trying to find the right formula for sizing those markets, but it is something we're looking at.
And just to add to that, I think one point that both speakers made today was the importance of prioritization. You know, you can quantify maybe the total number of trips or the total baskets across the board, but really, what does your brand stand for? What's your best opportunity based on the community that you reside in, the neighborhood that you serve? And whether we're talking to a particular type of consumer that is more actively engaging in our retail proposition, or was Brian put very succinctly, this idea of ease or speed. Are we easing, you know, in a large format because it is one-stop shopping, excuse me, or is it really the in and out? So sometimes we have to look at the capabilities of the retailer and have that retailer make a choice because, again, like in every type of retail situation, we can't be all things to all people. Okay, we have a question from Carl at Bravo in Chicago. Did you see any variations with the multicultural customers? I think that's for Britt.
Actually, you know, we didn't, and that was a hypothesis going in that we would see the differences. And, you know, I think what we saw was obviously as you enter more ethnic neighborhoods, you just got greater diversity in some of those need states. But in fact, as we looked across the whole of all of the stores and all of the markets that we visited, we didn't see a lot of difference. There wasn't one need state that, you know, kind of represented a stronger ethnic mix. And I think that was interesting for us that, you know, some of the hypotheses we had going in were actually disproved as we went through our research.
So everybody needs a quick fix.
Yes.
Everyone's a Mr. Jones.
The one thing, Britt, that I will add to that, though, is there, you know, when you talked about the Jones need state, it is important to keep in mind that when you look at the hard data on this, that, you know, a disproportionate, you know, a significant amount of that Jones need state is tobacco, you know, particularly when you're looking at trip drivers. So you can do some mapping of the demographics of tobacco consumption, and you can start to see that you're going to see at least a disproportionate lean, perhaps, with one of the need states in particular towards convenience store utilization. So.
No, that's a great point, Brian.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I should add that if you think of something later, I think you all have our emails that was on the agenda that Melinda forwarded to everyone who registered for the session. So sometimes things come to mind in a couple hours, and I know we have all different time zones. Alan just says thanks from South Africa, so we appreciate your logging on. So again, this isn't the last time to ask any questions. We're all available by email. So unless we get another question in a couple minutes, a minute or so, we're going to sign off. Thank you all for your participation. We'll make this content available through our website. I think what we're going to do, we did have a little technical issue at one point, so I think we'll make the decks available for you, and then also the podcast, so you can have this material both ways. And we'll send you updates as we continue to monitor this changing landscape of convenience shopping, because whether it's the digital space affecting the brick and mortar space or formats across all these different channels, it's obviously an issue that's affecting basically all retailers and all brands selling through those retailers. So again, thank you very much. Thank you from Gray, Mexico City. Is there one more question, or is that it? I think, pardon? Oh, I'm getting another question. Anyone who wants to hang on.
There was a question about whether the need states were global. And, you know, we've only done a deep dive on this research in the U.S., but it's something we'd love to expand into international markets and prove out whether or not those are global need states. I think what we saw gave us initial impressions that those are extensible into other markets, but it's something we have yet to prove out.
Adding to that, and Brian and I have spent some time in India, where a number of years ago we were saying, what is the role of formal retail in an environment where retail is everywhere? So that really emphasized this issue of convenience. You know, where the mom and pop retailer would bring down the bar of soap to your apartment in the middle of the night practically. And with the open, I mean, when retail truly is everywhere. So we're going to see some variation from one part of the world to another. But just coming back from a conference in Colombia, I was interested to see so many of the retailers with their express formats. And of course, OXXO, you know, making lots of inroads into in Bogota and so forth. So I think that's a trend we're going to see. We are seeing across the globe as all these more modern retailers creating formats that are express. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
I would take a wild guess that one of the major additional need states that you would see in markets where the informal trade still dominates urban markets is what I would just simply call a small basket grocery trip. So for shoppers that only have a very little bit of money and that are looking for low price points and small pack size, you know, being able to sort of, you know, but to experience that in a modern trade environment. Because if you look at how OXXO has grown as quickly as they have in Mexico, that's a core piece of what they've been able to do there, is to provide a modern trade alternative to the traditional trade in key geographies. So there's going to be a piece of there'll be a piece of that, I suspect, that probably gets folded in or added as you would try to think about this more globally.
Okay. Well, I thank you all for being with us, and we'll keep you posted on our next topics. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.